Did you know that there are wounds so deep in your soul that they came with you even before you were born? Wounds that have marked your way of being, feeling, loving, and even suffering? Well, my dear Pisces, today I'm here to tell you something that will touch your heart in a way you can't even imagine. There are 9 spiritual wounds that your sign carries in this life. And healing these wounds is what will free you from so much unnecessary suffering. Look, I know you've already felt the weight of carrying the world on your shoulders. I know you've cried without understanding why, felt a deep pain without knowing where it came from. And you know what I discovered? That all of this has a much greater explanation than you imagine. The universe didn't give you all this sensitivity for nothing. It didn't make you this being of light capable of feeling the emotions of others just because. No, my love. You came here with a mission. And part of that mission is to heal these 9 wounds that are preventing you from shining completely. Now pay attention to what I'm about to tell you because this is serious. If you don't heal these wounds, they will continue to sabotage you. They will continue to make you suffer for others, making you carry pains that aren't even yours, making you lose your own essence amidst so much self-giving. And I don't want that for you. I want you to understand that the time has come to look inward, to recognize these marks on your soul, and to begin the process of true healing. Because when you heal these 9 wounds, my dear, you will transform into such a powerful version of yourself that you won't even believe it. Stay with me until the end of this video, because every word here was specially chosen to touch your heart and show you the path to your liberation. Wound 1. The dissolution of one's own limits. The first spiritual wound you need to heal is the dissolution of your own boundaries. You know that feeling of not knowing where you end and the other person begins? Well, that's one of the deepest wounds Pisces carries. You were born with such a strong connection to the universe, to other people, to the energies around you, that you often simply get lost in the middle of it all. It's as if you were an ocean without shores, without defined borders. And that, my love, hurts you in ways you don't always realize. I'll explain to you exactly how this wound formed. Since you were little, you've always been that child who felt too much. When your mother was sad, you cried along with her. When someone close to you was angry, you felt that heavy energy in your chest. You didn't learn to separate your emotions from the emotions of others because your soul is naturally porous, naturally receptive to everything around you. And over time, this created enormous confusion within you. You began to think you were responsible for the feelings of others, that you needed to carry their pain, that you didn't have the right to put your own well-being first. And you know what happened? You grew up without knowing how to say no, without knowing how to protect yourself, without understanding that you also need a sacred space of your own, where no one can enter without your permission. You let people invade your energy, your dreams, your peace. And whenever you tried to set a limit, that enormous guilt came, that feeling that you were being selfish, that you were abandoning those who needed you. But look, let me tell you a truth that will change everything for you. Having limits is not selfishness. Having limits is self-love. Having limits is respect for your own soul. The healing of this wound begins when you understand that you are not responsible for saving everyone. You didn't come into the world to get lost in the suffering of others. You came to serve, yes, because that's part of your beautiful Pisces nature. But you need to serve from a place of fullness, not emptiness. You need to help from your strength, not your weakness. And for that, you need to learn to build those boundaries within yourself. You need to learn to say, look, I love you, but this is mine. This pain is mine to process alone. This space is mine to rest. This time is mine to reconnect with myself. When you start doing this, when you start establishing these sacred boundaries, something magical happens. You realize you don't lose people's love. On the contrary, the right people will respect your boundaries. And those who don't, well, you'll realize they were never truly interested in your well-being. And that's okay. It's part of the process. Learning to let go of those who don't value you is part of your healing. Because you, my dear Pisces, you deserve relationships where you can be yourself without dissolving, without disappearing, without losing your essence. Wound 2. The emotional martyrdom. The second wound you carry is emotional martyrdom. And this one, let me tell you, this one is heavy. This wound was born from a very deep belief that lies deep in your soul. The belief that you need to suffer to be loved. That your worth lies in your capacity for sacrifice. That true love only exists when you give yourself completely, even if it means negating yourself, hurting yourself, getting lost along the way. Do you know where this comes from? It comes from many lifetimes where you learned that suffering was something noble. Lives where you were the person who gave up everything for others. Lives where you were the healer, the counselor, the one who was always there to comfort, even when no one else was there to comfort you. And these memories, even if you don't consciously remember them, are engraved in your soul. They became so deep that you brought them into this life. You brought this tendency to always put yourself last, to think that your love only has value if it comes accompanied by pain. And look where that got you. How many times have you stayed in relationships that made you suffer because you thought you could change the person? How many times have you sacrificed yourself at work, in your family, in your friendships, hoping that one day someone would recognize how much you gave? How many times have you swallowed your tears, held on to your resentment, pretended everything was fine just to avoid bothering anyone? You became an expert at carrying crosses that weren't even yours. And each time you did that, the wound grew bigger, deeper, more painful. But come here, let me ask you a question. Who said you need to suffer to be worthy of love? Who put that idea in your head? Because I'm going to tell you a secret that the universe wants you to know. You are already worthy of love. You already deserve all the happiness in the world. Not because of what you do, not because of how much you sacrifice, but simply because you exist. Simply because you are this beautiful, sensitive, light-filled soul that you are. Your value is not in your suffering. Your value is in your essence. The healing of this wound involves learning to love yourself unconditionally. Learning that you can receive without needing to give in return all the time. That you can rest without feeling guilty. That you can prioritize your happiness without thinking you're being selfish. And I know this isn't easy for you. I know that every time you try to do something for yourself, that voice in your head tells you that you should be doing more for others. But that voice, my love, is the voice of the wound. It's not the voice of truth. The truth is that you deserve as much love, as much care, as much peace as anyone else in this world. And when you start treating yourself with this kindness, when you start giving yourself the same love you've always given to others, the wound will begin to heal. Slowly, in due time, it will heal. If this message resonated with your zodiac sign, trust me, it's no coincidence. When the universe wants to speak to you, it sends exactly the right signal. And you're here because you needed to hear this today. Your contribution as a subscriber or member is what keeps these messages alive. Messages that touch, awaken, and transform lives. And if this video made sense to you, leave your birth date in the comments. Now let's continue with our video. Wound 3. The escape from reality. The third spiritual wound that Pisces needs to heal is the escape from reality. And look, this wound is complicated because it comes disguised as protection. It comes disguised as sensitivity. Comes disguised as spirituality. But deep down, it's a way for you to hide from the world, to avoid facing the difficult things in life, to take refuge in a place where pain can't reach you. You know what I'm talking about, right? That tendency you have to get lost in your dreams, your fantasies, your creations. That way you have of simply switching off when reality gets too heavy. It could be through art, music, movies, books. It could be through excessive meditation, spirituality that disconnects you from the here and now. It could even be through less healthy things like addictions, dependencies, relationships that allow you to live in an illusion. The point is always the same. You prefer to be anywhere but in the present. Less in real life with its real challenges, its real responsibilities, its real emotions. And do you know why you developed this pattern? Because reality was often too harsh for your sensitivity. Because you are a being who feels everything so intensely that sometimes it's simply unbearable to stay here. In this dense world. In this world that doesn't always understand your soul. So you created these refuges. These parallel worlds where you could be who you really are. Where you could dream without limits. Where no one judged you. No one hurt you. No one disappointed you. And for a time it saved you. It gave you the strength to continue when everything seemed impossible. But there came a point where this escape began to harm you more than help you. It began to prevent you from truly living. It began to keep you trapped in a place where you don't grow, don't evolve, don't face your fears. Because life, my dear, happens here and now. It doesn't happen in your dreams. It doesn't happen in that perfect world you created in your head. It happens in this imperfect reality, full of challenges, full of opportunities for growth, full of moments that will transform you if you have the courage to be present for them. Healing this wound is one of the most difficult, but also one of the most liberating. It requires you to develop roots. That you learn to anchor yourself in reality without losing your ability to dream. That you find a balance between the material world and the spiritual world. And that means doing practical things, concrete things. It means creating a routine that keeps you connected to the present. It means facing those difficult conversations you've been putting off. It means looking at your bills, your responsibilities, your commitments with seriousness. It means stopping waiting for someone to come and save you and understanding that you have to be your own savior. And I know that part of you is resisting this, because it seems like I'm asking you to give up your magic, your sensitivity, your connection to the divine. But that's not it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you can have all of that and still be present. You can be spiritual and also practical. You can dream and also act. You can feel deeply and also have your feet on the ground. When you heal this wound, when you learn to fully inhabit this reality, you discover a power you didn't even know you had. The power to manifest your dreams here, on this physical plane. The power to transform your vision into reality. The power to be the channel between heaven and earth, bringing light to this world that so desperately needs it. Wound 4. The absorption of negative energies. The fourth wound you need to heal is the constant absorption of negative energies. You are an emotional sponge, my love. You absorb everything. The neighbor's sadness, the coworker's anger, the family's anxiety, the collective fear in the air. And you absorb it in such a natural, automatic way that you don't even realize you're doing it. Suddenly you feel bad, you have that weight on your chest, that inexplicable anguish, and you don't know where it came from. This wound formed because you were born without the energy filters that most people have. You're like a radio that's always on, always picking up all frequencies at once. And that's a gift, you know? It's a beautiful gift when you learn to use it the right way. But it becomes a curse when you don't know how to protect yourself, when you don't know how to cleanse your energy, when you don't know how to distinguish what is yours from what belongs to others. Because then you become a repository of heavy energies, an emotional garbage dump where everyone throws their problems. Let me tell you how this works in everyday life. You wake up in the morning feeling good, energetic, and eager to get things done. Then you leave home, take public transport full of stressed out people, arrive at work and find people complaining, pass by someone who is having problems, go home and watch bad news on television. And at the end of the day, you are exhausted, completely drained, with no energy for anything. And you think it's just physical tiredness, but it's not. It's energy fatigue. It's the weight of all that energy you absorb throughout the day without even realizing it. And the worst part is that it doesn't just affect your emotions. It affects your physical body too. Because all that negative energy you absorb needs to go somewhere. And it does. It accumulates in your organs, your muscles, your cells. And then those unexplained pains begin, that chronic fatigue, those illnesses that doctors can't properly diagnose. Because the origin isn't physical. The origin is energetic. It's spiritual. Healing this wound requires you to learn real energy protection techniques. And I'm not talking about complicated things. I'm talking about simple things you can do every day. Start your day visualizing a white light around you, a protective bubble that only lets in good energies. Take baths with coarse salt to cleanse your energy. Avoid places and people that unnecessarily weigh you down. Learn to mentally say when you feel bad energy coming, "This is not mine, this does not belong to me. I return it to the earth to transmute." And most importantly, create the habit of energetically cleansing yourself every day before going to sleep. Do you know what will happen when you really start doing this? You'll feel lighter, stronger, more yourself, because you'll stop carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You'll stop feeling responsible for transmuting all the negative energy around you. You'll understand that you can be compassionate, you can be loving, you can help people without needing to absorb their suffering. And that, my dear, is one of the greatest liberations a Pisces can experience in this life. Wound 5. The difficulty of discerning illusion from truth. The fifth spiritual wound is the difficulty in discerning illusion from truth. And this one, let me tell you, this wound makes you suffer immensely. Because you see the world not as it is, but as you would like it to be. You see people not for who they really are, but for the potential they have. You believe in promises that were never made. You cling to dreams that never had a chance to come true. And when reality knocks on your door, when the truth is finally revealed, you feel betrayed, disappointed, destroyed. This wound stems from your naturally idealistic nature. You were born with a worldview based on love, kindness, and beauty. And that's wonderful. That's a gift. But it becomes a problem when you use that worldview to deny the red flags that life shows you. When you close your eyes to the obvious signs that something is wrong because you so desperately want to believe that everything will be all right. When you make excuses for people's behavior because you don't want to accept that they simply aren't who you imagine them to be. How many times have you forgiven someone who didn't deserve forgiveness? How many times have you given another chance to someone who had already shown they weren't going to change? How many times have you ignored everyone's advice because you were sure you knew the truth about that situation, about that person, about that path? And how many times have you been hurt because of it? How many times have you had to learn the lesson the hard way? The problem isn't your ability to see the good in people. The problem is when you use that ability to deceive yourself, to create a version of reality that makes you comfortable, but isn't real, to live in an illusion that protects you from short-term pain, but hurts you much more in the long run. Because the truth, my love, the truth always comes out. Always. And the longer you deny it, the harder the fall when it finally reveals itself. Healing this wound requires you to develop spiritual discernment. And discernment is not pessimism. It's not distrust. It's not cynicism. Discernment is the ability to see things as they truly are, without denying reality, but also without losing hope. It's looking at a person and recognizing both their qualities and their limitations. It's entering a situation knowing how to differentiate what is possible from what is merely a beautiful dream. It's learning to trust your intuition when it warns you that something is wrong, even if your mind wants to believe otherwise. And do you know how you develop this discernment? By paying attention to patterns, observing not what people say but what they do, valuing actions more than promises, learning that when someone shows you who they really are, you need to believe them. The first time, not the 10th. You also need to start asking yourself difficult questions. Am I seeing this situation clearly? Or am I seeing what I want to see? Am I clinging to this person for who they are or for who I hope they will become? Am I being realistic? Or am I living in a fantasy? These questions hurt, but they are necessary, because they bring you back to reality. And it is only in reality, dealing with what is true, that you can build something solid, something that will last, something that will not crumble in the first gust of wind. Wound 6. The guilt of not being able to save everyone. The 6th wound you carry is the guilt of not being able to save everyone. You feel as if it's your responsibility to solve the suffering of the entire world. As if you have to be the savior of all lost people, of all wounded souls, of all complicated situations. And when you can't do that, when someone suffers despite all your efforts, you feel a guilt so deep it feels like it will swallow you whole. This wound was born from your boundless compassion, from your inability to see someone suffering without wanting to do something to help. And that's beautiful, you know? It shows the purity of your soul, the greatness of your heart. But it becomes too heavy a burden when you forget that each person has their own path, their own lessons, their own time. When you forget that you can't want more for the person than they want for themselves. When you forget that saving someone who doesn't want to be saved is impossible, and trying to do so will only destroy you in the process. I'll tell you how this wound manifests in your life. You know someone who is going through a difficult time. It could be a friend with depression, a family member with addictions, a partner with emotional problems. And you throw yourself headlong into helping. You listen, advise, support, give all your time, all your energy, all your love. You do everything in your power and then some. You sacrifice yourself, give up your own needs, put your life second. And then despite all this, the person doesn't get better. Or they get better for a while and then return to the same patterns. And you, how do you feel? Guilt. Enormous guilt. You keep thinking about what more you could have done, what you did wrong, how you failed. But let me ask you a question. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe it's not about you? That maybe that person is living exactly the experience their soul needs to live? That maybe their suffering is their path to growth, to awakening, to transformation? Have you considered that by trying to save someone from their own process, you might actually be preventing that person from learning the lessons they came here to learn? The cure for this wound is learning to differentiate between compassion and codependency. Compassion is when you offer support, love, and presence, but respecting the person's free will, respecting their path, and respecting the fact that each person is responsible for their own life. Codependency is when you feel responsible for the other person's happiness, when you try to control their process, when you can't separate yourself from their suffering. Compassion strengthens you. Codependency destroys you. And look, healing this wound doesn't mean you'll stop caring about people. It doesn't mean you'll become cold, distant, indifferent to the suffering of others. It means you'll learn to help in a healthier, more balanced, more sustainable way. It means you'll understand that the best you can do for someone sometimes is simply to be present, without trying to fix, without trying to solve, without trying to save. Just be there, offering a safe space, loving listening, a compassionate presence. And trust that each soul has its own strength, its own wisdom, its own capacity to heal when the time is right. Wound 7. The denial of one's own anger. The seventh spiritual wound that Pisces needs to heal is the denial of their own anger. You have difficulty recognizing that you also feel anger, that you also get irritated, that you also have limits that, when crossed, make you explode. Because you were taught or you taught yourself that being spiritual means always being peaceful, always understanding, always loving. That feeling anger is something negative, something you should avoid at all costs. But here's a truth that will shock you. Anger is not a bad emotion. Anger is a natural, necessary human emotion. Anger is what alerts you when your boundaries are being disrespected. Anger is what gives you the energy to make important changes in your life. Anger is what protects you from abusive situations, toxic people, and injustices. The problem isn't feeling anger. The problem is not knowing how to deal with it in a healthy way. And how do you deal with anger? You deny it. You swallow it. You push it down. You pretend you're not feeling it. You tell yourself you need to be more understanding, more patient, more tolerant. You transform anger into sadness, because sadness is more acceptable to you. You turn an emotion that should be expressed outwardly inward. And do you know what happens to all that accumulated anger? It doesn't disappear. It stays there inside you, poisoning your system, creating resentment, causing illness, leaving you depressed. How many times have you gotten sick right after a situation where you swallowed your anger? How many times have you had headaches, stomach problems, inexplicable crying spells, all because you didn't allow the anger to come out in a healthy way? How many times have you exploded disproportionately over something trivial, simply because you had been accumulating anger for months, for years, and that was the last straw? Healing this wound begins when you accept that feeling anger is normal, that you have the right to be angry when someone disrespects you, hurts you, or treats you badly. That expressing this anger in a healthy way doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you less spiritual, doesn't make you less loving. In fact, it makes you more authentic, more honest, more whole. Because you are allowing all parts of yourself to exist, not just the pretty, correct, socially acceptable parts. And how do you express anger in a healthy way? First, by acknowledging when you're feeling it. Not denying it, not minimizing it, but simply saying, I'm angry, and that's okay. Second, by identifying what caused that anger. What was disrespected? What boundary was crossed? Third, by choosing a constructive way to deal with it. It could be having a direct conversation with the person who hurt you. It could be distancing yourself from a toxic situation. It could be writing a letter you'll never send just to let it out. It could be doing intense physical exercise to release the energy. It could be shouting in a place where no one can hear you. The important thing is not to hold it in, not to accumulate it, not to pretend it doesn't exist. When you heal that wound, when you learn to honor your anger, something incredible happens. You stop being the person everyone walks all over. You stop accepting crumbs of love, respect, and consideration. You start to truly stand up for yourself, to defend what's important to you, to say no when you need to say no. And people will respect you much more. Because you are respecting yourself first. Wound 8. The fear of being abandoned. The eighth spiritual wound is the deep fear of being abandoned. This fear is so ingrained in you that it influences every decision you make in your relationships. You mold yourself to please others. You hide parts of yourself that you think might push people away. You tolerate unacceptable behavior because you are terrified of being alone. You desperately cling to anyone who shows you the slightest affection because, deep down, you don't believe you deserve to be loved unconditionally. This wound has very deep roots. It may have started in this life with some experience of real or emotional abandonment in childhood. It may come from past lives, where you experienced the pain of separation in traumatic ways. But regardless of where it comes from, it's here now, creating destructive patterns in your relationships, making you lose yourself in others, making you accept less than you deserve, making you live in constant fear that at any moment the people you love will leave you. And you know what's worse? This fear often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when you act out of fear of being abandoned, you end up creating exactly the situation you fear most. You become so clingy, so needy, so emotionally dependent that you end up suffocating people. Or you become so desperate not to be abandoned that you choose emotionally unavailable partners, people who will never be able to give you what you need. And then you spend your whole life chasing after a love that always slips away, proving to yourself that you really aren't worthy of being loved. I'll give you practical examples of how this wound plays out in your life. You meet someone new and quickly fall in love. Give yourself completely, make plans for the future, all very fast. Because you're so starved for love that you seize the first opportunity with all your might. But then the person starts to pull away because the pace is too intense and you panic. You start sending desperate messages, demanding attention, making a scene. And the more desperate you become, the more the person pulls away. Or you're in a relationship where you're not treated well, where you're not valued, where you suffer, but you stay because you're afraid of being alone. You accept weak excuses, forgive betrayals, swallow humiliations, all to avoid facing the pain of abandonment. Healing this wound is one of the most transformative experiences you can have. And it begins with you learning to become the person who will never abandon you. Learning to create such a strong relationship with yourself that the presence or absence of other people doesn't determine your worth, your peace, your happiness. This is not selfishness. This is not coldness. This is emotional maturity. This is true self-love. How do you do this in practice? You begin to cultivate a life that has meaning in itself, not just in terms of your relationships. You develop hobbies, interests, and projects that fill you with energy. You build a diverse support network, not placing all your emotional needs on a single person. You learn to be alone without feeling lonely. You discover that solitude can be sacred, a space for reconnection with yourself, for deep healing, for spiritual growth. You work on your self-esteem, reminding yourself daily of your worth, your qualities, and how much you have to offer. You stop begging for love and begin to understand that true love, the love that is truly worthwhile, comes naturally, effortlessly, without fear, without unhealthy attachment. And when you heal that wound, when you finally understand that you will never be alone because you will always have yourself, everything changes. Your relationships become healthier because you are in them by choice, not by necessity. You attract better people because you are radiating a different energy, an energy of completeness, not of lack. And if someone abandons you, you will feel the pain, yes, because you are human, but that pain will not destroy you. Because you know you will be okay. Because you know you are enough. Wound 9. Disconnection from spiritual purpose. The ninth and final spiritual wound that Pisces needs to heal is the disconnection from their spiritual purpose. You were born with a sacred mission in this life. You came here to be a channel of light, of healing, of unconditional love. You came to raise collective consciousness through your art, your sensitivity, your ability to connect with the divine. But at some point along the way you disconnected from that. You got lost in the material world, in the expectations of others, in the demands of society. And now you live with a constant feeling of emptiness, that something is missing, that you should be doing more, being more, contributing more. This wound hurts differently than others, because it's not a pain that comes from the outside. It's a pain that comes from within. It's your soul screaming for you to come home, to remember who you truly are, to align your human life with your divine purpose. And as long as you don't do that, as long as you continue living a life that isn't aligned with your essence, you will continue to feel lost, empty, as if you are merely surviving instead of truly living. Do you know that feeling when you look at your routine and don't recognize how you got there? When you're doing things every day that don't resonate with your soul. When you're in a job that doesn't inspire you, in an environment that doesn't nourish you, following a path that isn't yours. That's the wound of disconnection from purpose. And it corrodes you from the inside. It makes you question the meaning of everything. It leaves you depressed, anxious, with that feeling that life is passing you by and you're wasting your time, your talent, your light. What caused this disconnect? Many things. The expectations of your family, who wanted you to follow a more traditional, safer, more acceptable path. Society, which taught you that dreams don't pay the bills, that you need to be practical, that you need to follow the rules. Your own wounds, which made you believe that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve to follow your heart, that you need to settle for less than your soul desires. And little by little, you drifted away from your purpose. You silenced the voice of your intuition. You extinguished your light to fit into spaces that were too small for you. But let me tell you something that will change everything. It's never too late to reconnect with your purpose. Never. No matter how old you are, how many mistakes you've made, how much time you've spent going in the wrong direction. Your soul is always waiting for you to return. Your purpose is always there, ready to be rescued. And the universe is always conspiring to put you back on the right path, sending signals, opening doors, creating opportunities. Healing this wound begins with you creating spaces of silence and introspection in your life. Spaces where you can hear the voice of your soul without the interference of the outside world. This could be through meditation, walking in nature, automatic writing, art, music, any practice that connects you with your higher self. And in these moments you ask yourself questions. What am I here to do? What is my unique gift? How can I serve the world in a way that also fulfills me? If I weren't afraid of anything, if money weren't a problem, what would I be doing with my life? The answers come. Not all at once, not always clearly and obviously, but they come. In sudden insights. In dreams. In synchronicities. In people who cross your path and show you something new. In opportunities that appear out of nowhere. The universe always answers when you ask sincere questions with an open heart. And when the answers start to arrive, you need to have the courage to act. To take steps, even small ones, in the direction of your purpose. To make changes even if they scare you. To trust the process even when logic says it doesn't make sense. When you heal that wound, when you reconnect with your spiritual purpose and begin to live from it, everything transforms. You wake up in the morning with energy, with enthusiasm, with a will to live. You do things with passion, with love, with dedication. You feel useful, you feel alive, you feel complete. Because you are no longer living someone else's life. You are living your own life. The life you came to live. The life that makes your soul sing. If this message resonated with your zodiac sign, trust me, it's no coincidence. When the universe wants to speak to you, it sends exactly the right signal. And you're here because you needed to hear this today. Your contribution as a subscriber or member is what keeps these messages alive. Messages that touch, awaken, and transform lives. And if this video made sense to you, leave your birth date in the comments. My dear Pisces, we've reached the end of this video. But in truth, we're only at the beginning of your healing journey. These 9 spiritual wounds I've shared with you today are not a burden. They are portals of transformation. They are opportunities for you to become the most powerful, freest, most authentic version of yourself. Each wound you heal brings you closer to your divine essence, your true light, your sacred purpose. I know it's not easy. I know it hurts to look at these wounds, to recognize these patterns, to admit that you need to change. But you are strong. You are brave. You have a spiritual strength within you that is capable of moving mountains. And you are not alone on this journey. The universe is on your side, your spiritual guides are supporting you. And there are people here on this earth who understand your pain, who have been through this, who are rooting for your healing. So I want you to make a commitment to yourself today. A commitment that you will begin to heal these wounds. Doesn't have to be all at once. Choose one wound, the one that hurt the most when you heard it, the one that made the most sense to you. And start working on it. One day at a time. One step at a time. With patience. With love. With compassion for yourself. Because you deserve to heal. You deserve to be free. You deserve to live the full, abundant, happy life that the universe has prepared for you. And always remember that the fact that you've made it this far to the end of this video already shows that you're ready for this transformation. It shows that your soul is asking for this healing. It shows that the time has come for you to break free from these old patterns and begin a new cycle in your life. Trust the process. Trust in your power. Trust that you are exactly where you need to be. If you enjoyed this video, if it touched your heart in any way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because I'm here every week bringing you content like this, made especially for you who are on this journey of spiritual awakening, self-knowledge, and deep healing. And leave a comment below telling me which of these 9 wounds resonated most with you. Which one did you realize you need to heal most urgently? Because we form a community here, a spiritual family, and your sharing can help other people who are going through the same thing as you. Now I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. Of all the 9 wounds we discussed today, which one, if completely healed, would transform your life in the most significant way? Think about it. Feel that answer in your heart. And then start working on it from today. Because the life you dream of is on the other side of your healing. And you have everything you need to get there. A huge kiss to your heart, my love. May the blessings of the universe always be with you. And may you have the courage to heal these wounds and become who you truly came to be in this life. Until the next video.